With us in the studio now is Andy and Julie Wynn, who lived in China for over 6 years. In Andy's book, The Biggest City You've Never Heard Of, he shares their story. Both eye-opening and informative, it unlocks the real experiences and challenges of modern-day China. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hello, Anna.
Morning, Anna. Morning, everyone.
Thanks very much for coming in. So let's start with you, Andy, then, as author of the book. When and why did you move to China?
Well, we moved to China in, it was August 2011. I was kind of sent there by my company. It was a fantastic opportunity. I'd been working in a global multinational business for probably 25 years by then, and I had a wonderful opportunity. They wanted someone to go to China and build a factory. And that was something I'd never done before. I was a technical director for the business, and blank sheet of paper, incredible project. What an opportunity, and one I wanted to grab with both hands.
So whereabouts in China were you sent to?
I was sent to the biggest city you've never heard of.
Go on, test me.
A city called Dalian, which is in the northeast.
Yep, you're right. I've never heard of it. That's a good start.
It's a beautiful city. It's beautiful.
6-7 million people live in this
wow.
city. The cover of the book is a photo of the cityscape at night. Mm-hmm. Incredible photo, and if you look at the photo, you would think you're looking at Hong Kong or some
Shanghai.
well-known massive city.
Yeah,
because it's a city full of skyscrapers, full of incredibly modern buildings, a lot of tourist destinations there. And we lived in Dalian for over 6 years.
And where is Dalian in relation to Beijing?
That's easy. It's about 1 hour flight east
Wow.
of Beijing.
A flight, as well. It just gives you an idea of the size of the country. Yes.
And it's actually quite near the North Korean border.
Ah, okay.
If you so desire,
Sounds exciting.
Yeah, no, we didn't get that.
you
I
can
didn't get
drive
that.
to North Korea in 3.5 hours from Dalian.
Really?
A lot of people did do that, actually, and did enjoy it. Obviously, it was
Oh,
very well guided. But
Wow, how fascinating.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you can just drive there as a tourist, can you?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't even think that was
And
possible.
many do.
Wow.
Well, you can drive to the border.
Ah, okay.
You can't drive over it.
I was going to say,
That's
okay.
quite different.
Right, okay.
You can see a lot from there, though. Actually.
Yeah, there's a famous kind of tourist destination there, the city of Dandong, and if you go there in the evening, you can walk along the Chinese side, the Dandong side, in all the bright lights and cafes, having fun, and look across to the North Korean city. Complete darkness, no lights,
My
nothing.
Goodness, how weird.
Yeah.
And there's a famous bridge there, the Dandong Bridge, which used to go all the way to North Korea, but it was bombed in the North Korean War. So it's quite a tourist destination. You can walk halfway across it,
Oh my
and
goodness,
there's
then
nothing
it just
there. You know?
stops. Wow, how weird. So what was this city like then that you lived in?
Dalian. I said it's a small city of 6-7 million people. It is a truly international city, but it's not a Western international city.
Right.
So, because of where it's located, Dalian is very, very popular with Japanese, with Koreans, with the rest of China. And in fact, because of the location of Dalian sits on a promontory sticking out into, it's between the Yellow Sea and the Bohai Sea. So the city is surrounded on 3 sides by water. And so therefore it's a big port city. And it's also full of beaches.
What about is it easy to kind of navigate? Do they have translations in English, so on road signs, menus, all that kind of thing?
Yes, to some degree.
Yeah.
Okay.
It depends. In the bigger cities, Shanghai, Beijing, Hong Kong, of course.
Yes.
And you'll find people who speak English. But in Tier 2, Tier 1 cities, Dalian is what's called a Tier 2 city. You'll find these days, yes, you will have English translations but they're phonetic English. It's Romanised letters,
Yeah.
but they're not English words.
Right.
It just tells you how to pronounce the Chinese character, essentially. But
Okay. So did you get around okay? Were you okay with the language issues?
yeah, after 6 years,
Yeah,
of
Not at
course,
first. I had to
learned.
learn how to. I had to learn some Chinese to go shopping
Right.
and buy cheese and milk and things. Because
Yeah.
people just in the local shops didn't speak any English, so I had to learn.
Yeah. And did you find it difficult?
At first, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a challenge.
It's completely different,
Yeah.
isn't it? It's a whole new.
Definitely.
And were you able to understand after 6 years any of the writing or?
oh yeah,
Yes.
Oh, really?
yes.
The proper Chinese
yes, we
writing?
had teachers especially for
Oh, how
language
lovely!
teachers. Yeah.
Fantastic.
we spent 6 years learning Chinese.
Oh, brilliant!
Yeah.
So, do you speak a bit now?
当然我会说中文，因为我住在中国工作6年。
It's quite fluent.
That's amazing. I've no idea what you just said, but I'm impressed. I hope it was something nice.
I said, of course I can speak Chinese. I lived there for over 6 years.
That's brilliant. I'm very impressed. So, did you need to speak it with your job? The people that you were working with, did they speak much English?
Yes and no. Particularly when I went there to build a factory, you're working with a mixture of locals and international style people, so you can get by. I worked in an international company, so you can get by in English, but of course it's always, there's a limit to who you can speak to and who you can interact with if you
Yeah.
can't speak the local language. So it was always important to me, and it was part of why I went to China.
Yeah.
You don't go there to be a tourist.
So
Yeah.
was that Mandarin Chinese? Because there's
Yes.
different languages or different dialects. How is it?
There are both. Mandarin is the official government-sponsored language, if you like. It was. I think in the 1950s they had a big push to make it the official language across the whole country. So you find maybe 85% of Chinese people speak Mandarin.
Okay.
But it's such a massive country. You go around the country, and the different accents are incredibly diverse and a real struggle. In terms of, there are local dialects as well. And even where we lived in Dalian, you could speak official Mandarin Chinese, but if I went to the market and wanted to buy some fruit from the guy at the stall, I wouldn't have a clue what he spoke.
Really?
Because his Dalianese dialect was just completely different.
Yeah.
And then in terms of Chinese languages, there's Cantonese, which is in the south. That's mainly Hong Kong, Guangdong area. And that is a different language, and the characters are different. But the main advantage with Mandarin when you were learning Mandarin is even though the spoken form can be different across the vast country, the written form's exactly the same. So the characters, so you can read it no matter where you are, even if you can't really speak it very well.
And what about the food? I think most people will have eaten Chinese food, but not necessarily in China. Was it what you expected? Was it what you were used to when going to a Chinese restaurant here?
Well, taking the wives for lunch was fantastic, and we soon got well into it, I must say.
Yeah.
Especially all the wives from all over the world, different places. So it was wonderful to embrace all their different cultures as well and learn about all their backgrounds. And then to go out to certain places that we found that were very, very good on the foods, you know. So that was great fun.
Because I've heard that when you go to India, the traditional Indian cuisine is very different to what we're used to eating in Indian
Well, you've been a few
restaurants.
times,
So I
haven't
wondered
you?
if it was the same. Wondered if it was the same with China. Do you get the same sort of dishes that you've been used to eating here, or not?
Not a
necessarily?
lot, no. It is very, very different.
Okay.
China, again, being a vast country, there are they have 8 types of classic Chinese cuisine, and what you tend to eat in a Western country is more Cantonese. It's more Hong Kong
Right.
style. So there's a lot of sweet, sticky red sauces on things,
Yeah.
and you have the the roast duck and things like that. A lot of that is Cantonese. You have Beijing duck, or Peking duck, maybe people still call it. That's obviously from Beijing.
Yeah.
But Shanghai, for example, is a very different style of food. Shanghai is the traditional Chinese banquet food. So it's big, it's ostentatious. It's where you sit on the huge Lazy Susan tables and drink copious amounts of alcohol, you know. That's that kind of food. Dalian, because of where it is, Dalian is in what's called the Shandong region of cuisine. It's actually in the province called Liaoning. But Dalian food is, I used to call it Seafood City. Because, of course, it's surrounded by the water.
Yes.
And it's famous for seafood there as well. It's a famous Dalian.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. People there. Tourists who are going to Dalian expect to eat the king of seafood.
Okay.
But of course, Chinese Dalian seafood is not what you and I would expect.
Oh, really?
Seafood, yes.
Tell me, what kind of thing then?
You can get things you can recognise, like a fish, you know.
Yes.
But beyond that, their definition of seafood is it's really anything that kind of wriggles and squirms around in the sea.
Yeah, I'll never forget my first sea snail. That wasn't a very nice experience for me.
Okay.
And I had to eat it, really, because I was with you, and you were kind of the boss at the time there, weren't you?
So you had to eat
some of this, which was
a little chewy. Sea snail's a little chewy.
I think I covered it in soy sauce and just went for it. But
and what about the price of things, food and everything in general, living?
It was so good. The taxes were so cheap.
Really?
Yeah, but I mean, it did vary again. Obviously, you know, you've got high-end hotels and residences, and it was a mixture again. But
I think there's a kind of two-tier system of cost of living. If, as a Western expat, you want Western expat experience and comforts and high-end, then you're going to pay for that. And there's a whole industry grown up in China to support high-end accommodation. We lived in a very plush apartment, I have to say, in a 5-star hotel, and high-end international healthcare. All these things are very expensive because they know your company's going to pay for them.
Right.
If you're the average Chinese person, then you're not in that world normally.
No.
And there's a whole subculture of street food and street markets and just things, normal living on the street. So cheap. Taxis you mentioned, you could get a taxi most places in the city for 10 RMB, which is like €1.
Really?
yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. That's fabulous. So would you go back? Were you just there on a work? So you left because your work contract ended? Is that what happened?
Yes. I went for a 3-year contract. Mm-hmm. I knew I would like it because I'd been travelling there for 15 years before that. So I knew I'd like it. Julie had never been, so it was a bit of a leap of faith there. And fortunately, she loved it. We did 3-year contracts. I signed up for year extension, another year extension, another year extension. And I basically, we had such a good life and I enjoyed it so much and it changed us so positively that I hung on as long as I could by my fingernails until somebody noticed and back at the back at the mothership, somebody said, "Oh, these expats are a little expensive. Perhaps we better recall Andy now."
Yeah,
and they recalled us, and I knew the day would come.
Yeah,
6+ years. I thought I'm not unhappy with that.
You did very well.
Yeah, very well.
And then after that, once we were recalled back to England, which was the end of 2017, I'd really become institutionalised as an expat, and I just could not go back to my old house, my old life in England. I just couldn't.
Yeah.
So
welcome to Spain.
So guess where we came? Yes.
It's great to be here. We love it.
Oh, fabulous! Well, it's great to meet you both, and it's great that you've shared your story in the book. It's called "The Biggest City You've Never Heard of," and it's by Andy Wynn, who we've been chatting to today, and Julie as well. Thank you both so much for coming in.
Thank you.